Robert up, and I'm gonna hold on. 3, 2, 1. Can you hear me,
Sorry, my
Robert?
mic was muted. I think his mic might also be muted. You're going to
Hey,
have to give him the hand signal.
hey, Jason. Jason.
Wax on, wax off, brother. Yeah, his mute,
He
my
look
mic
at him.
got
He
muted
looks like
automatically, so his is probably also muted. But
yeah.
whatever he is watching right now must be the most hardcore pornography he has ever seen in his life.
We're
What's
gonna
his
keep it up. We're gonna keep it up like this, dude. This is exactly.
eyeball?
I want to go check and make sure there's no sound issues on the Facebook. So hold on one second. As we, yeah, we're all good, man.
Yeah, his
Uh,
mic's probably just muted still.
yeah, but I mean, at some point in time, wouldn't you want to look at the screen and think maybe we're live?
Eventually, you would think like, oh, like I'm probably on a podcast. Like he must be involved. I don't know if you watched the new season of The Boys yet, but I caught up. So whenever I watch any like in show and the new season's about to come out,
Right.
I always like binge watch the entire season. I did
Okay.
it with The Walking Dead up to like season 7, and then I like just couldn't do it anymore because I was like, whenever season 2 would come out, I'd watch all of season 1. Whenever 3 would come out, I'd watch 1 and 2, and I
Yep.
just watch them back to back and catch up. And so I'm doing that with The Boys. And I just finally, after like a week, I have no free time. After like a week of like trying to get it in when I could, I finally was able to like catch up. And now I saw the first episode of the new season. It's so good. Oh my
See,
God.
I've never seen that one, and I'm gonna leave him up until he realizes, just so he realizes till he's live. So
Yeah.
he's totally get surprised here in a minute. I have done the same thing with Netflix. Peaky Blinders. Have you ever seen Peaky Blinders?
I haven't, but a lot of people have told me it's a great show.
Dude, it is. It is silly. Hey, what's this? I'm gonna play. This is why I love live stuff. I've done so many of these. I don't get stressed. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna call him.
He's gonna. Oh, there he goes. He's like, "What's going on? I don't understand."
Yo,
Hey, dude, we're live.
bro, really?
Yeah, you've been looking to click out and click back in. We've been live for 2 minutes and 30 seconds talking about you.
So have I been?
Yeah,
like,
you've
picking
been
my
on the
nose and
screen
stuff?
staring. He says you're looking at porn or something, dude. You're like, so you might want to. Can you see and hear us? Yeah, he clicked out. He'll click back in.
It happens.
Dude, I know you're super busy. If he clicks back in, great. He will, and he'll sound good. But I appreciate you jumping on with us. Do me a favor, as we're bringing Jason back. Well, hey, let's see. Let's see if he comes up now. Jason, can you hear us? 3, 2, 1.
I'm back. Guess who's back? Back
Dude,
again.
you were like this right here. I want you to look at the screen. You were like this. And he goes, that must be some of the most intense, like news or porn or something, because you were not moving, dude.
No, I'm a little bit unprepared because what you told me, I went off what you told me, which is Mount Rushmore of MMA.
That was my
right?
surprise question. You.
Oh yeah, you're right. I just ruined that. I'm sorry, but that's what you told me, and I took you at your word, and so I was prepared for that, and I'm having to do some last minute.
I'm not lying. I'm just adding to it. Hey, do me a favor, Robert, because you are a second-time guest, but that doesn't mean everybody knows who you are. Tell everybody what you do, the websites and the social media platforms you have, and then I'll kind of set up the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So by trade, I guess now I call out fakes, frauds, phonies, con men, and pedophiles in the martial arts industry. The page that I run is a web entity. Excuse me, a little coffee burp there for you in the middle. This is a comma. So my web entity is called McDojoLife, and basically that is what I do. And the whole entire point of what I do is to try to keep martial arts legitimate. I believe that martial arts itself is a very pure and honest and amazing thing that can benefit a lot of people. But because there is no regulating body to martial arts at all, a lot of people are able to con their way into the industry and just take advantage of people in some of the most horrific ways you could possibly think of. So my goal is to try to make sure that there's at least some accountability to those people.
Well, I will say this. I find it kind of scary and sad. Some of the stuff you post is pretty serious and there's no real levity in it. But then I would say the majority of stuff that I end up watching on your platforms, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or whatever, makes me giggle so hard. I am just because I watch it. I'm like, there are people that actually believe this shit and it drives me insane. But you entertain the crap out of me, dude.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm writing a new one right now. So I got my notepad and I'm trying to get my breakdown ready. What people don't really know, I think, about what I do is like technically, if you were going to put it in a category, technically what I do is real investigative journalism. So these people that I post, as ridiculous as they are, they really exist. They're not just doing it to get on the page. They're not doing it to get like seen. Most of them hate me and really don't like the fact that they got on the page. And I got to tell you, I haven't been able to say this one on the podcast, but I thought you guys might get a kick out of this. It was like not the most recent threat, because it's not really a threat, but I found it so funny that I had to post it up. And it actually was like one of my most popular posts in the last couple months. I think people want to hear more about the death threats that I get, but at least like this is one of the things that I received. So this guy's name is Dr. John Law Tourette. The doctor is extremely important to the context of what I'm about to tell you. So Dr. John Law Tourette believes that he can move clouds and manipulate them with his mind. I'm not making that up. He honestly believes that in his heart and soul that he could do that, and has students that he tries to teach it to. So this is what he wrote. Now, I've been calling this guy out for literally a decade. One of the first posts that I ever got shared on Rogan's Instagram page from my page was a post about him. So this is how ridiculous the man is. This is his response to me in a private Facebook group. Someone that follows me just happens to be in. His note was, just curious, folks, who is this piece of shit? This piece of human garbage who calls himself McDojoLife. Email me privately on Messenger if you know about him. Now, here's why I find that hilarious. One, you're a fucking doctor, man. You don't know what Google is. You can't just, not only will I pop up if you type up McDojoLife into Google, my face, this dumb face will pop up like this. And it's right there. You can't miss it. Two, right? You're a doctor. You're an actual doctor, and you can manipulate clouds with your mind. And you didn't stop to think, if I say this in a private group, chances are good this might not get outside of the private group. If I'm really looking, I can just go McDojoLife into the search bar of literally anything, and I'll probably pop up. Right. I don't get it. You're a doctor. Be a doctor. Be smart.
Well, I think you better be careful, because there's a real good chance if he actually does that, you're going to have a really wet front yard for a long time. So,
you know those cartoons where the cloud just follows the guy?
Yeah, you're about to be in some trouble. The upside is you might never need to wash your car again. It's just going to stay wet for the rest of your life.
I told this to Jason, but when he came on, but I'll share it now publicly. When Robert jumped on the green room before we go live, he was right in the middle of a voice to text or a voicemail to a guy that he had some sort of a brand new running battle with. And here's what I hear when the green room pops up. Here's what usually happens. You ready? Clint, can you hear? Hey, Clint, nice to meet you. Hey, man, I'm looking forward to this. That's what you normally get. Here's what I get. Hey, show me one post where I'm bashing Kung Fu, and then we can talk about it. Better yet, come on a live with me and let's talk it through. I got to jump on this podcast, or I'd keep talking about this as bullshit. And then he goes, hey, Clint, can you tell this guy something? And I'm like, this is the greatest intro of a green room. So
I don't know this guy.
Because we're going to do our 5 favorite fight movies, and maybe we'll get to the Mount Rushmore of UFC or MMA. My question to you, though, is this guy saying you bashed Kung Fu? Bring us up to speed on what the angst is with this guy.
Yeah, fuck it. I'll just read it. Why not? That's the perk of me being on social media, is that I got evidence all the time. And as a matter of fact, I reshared this. So let me just, that's not it. There we go. Porn. No, sorry. Let's get here. So like he randomly, this went on for a little bit. So this is what he wrote in his stories. And he just tagged me randomly and posted in his stories. It's a video of UFC fighters using a low line kick, which is a pendulum kick, which is used like often called an oblique kick. It's just a low level side kick to the knee, which I have no problem with. Never had a problem with it. He said, I shared this yesterday, but McDojoLife, oh my God, I didn't even think about the ebonics here. He said, I shared this yesterday, but McDojoLife be having a lot of y'all thinking Kung Fu doesn't actually work. This kick is found in many styles of Kung Fu. It's funny because the same people bitching in the comments are the same ones who think Kung Fu is bullshit. Now, specifically, he said this. I shared this yesterday, but McDojoLife be having y'all a lot of y'all thinking Kung Fu doesn't actually work. Like he said, I apparently are slandering this entire word. Right. First of all, Kung Fu is a generic term in China for a lot of different martial arts. There are a lot of different types of Kung Fu. When someone says, I studied Kung Fu, the first question I have is, which one? Right? So it's not my thing. And so then I asked him, I was like, there's so much wrong with your statement. I got to know, what do I think about Kung Fu? Please enlighten me. And he sent me a message of this, right? Which is a video that I posted, and it says Kung Fu fingers, right? By the way, that's a play on word. that art that I posted in that video has nothing to do with Kung Fu at all. I just thought it was funny, like Kung Fu fighting, Kung Fu fingers, and this guy's got his fingers down into someone's tonsils doing some kind of self-defense. It's ridiculous. I thought it was funny, right? He said, "This ain't it. I can tell you that." I was like, "Yeah, it's a play on words, genius." Like, did you even watch the video? Like, I asked him again. So anyway, by the time we actually got down to where I showed up with you, he said, "Definitely didn't say you bash Kung Fu." Now, let me just make sure that I read this correctly one more time because I could be wrong. I shared this yesterday, but McDojoLife be having a lot of y'all thinking Kung Fu doesn't actually work. Am I misreading that, or do I not understand what he said? That is specifically aimed at me, saying that I did something incorrectly. Like, all right, genius. So he's. Oh, by the way, his comment back to you is. So he's crying because we're having a oh man, his ebonics is so hard to read. Laughing my ass off. He's crying because we having a discussion. Have I been rude yet? So just real quick, just for the sake of us being on the podcast, because I think this would be hilarious. Do you want to like respond to him and I record it?
No, you can do whatever you want. I don't respond to people at all. Listen, I'm old, dude. If anybody, listen, I'm not you. I am old. I've raised all my kids. If anybody wants to test me, 2:00 in the morning, I can give my address. Feel free to come through the door, and it ain't karate or there's no MMA involved at my house.
Hold on, I'm just
chitty bang bang.
It's chitty bang. And they're moving a couple thousand.
Just literally clowning you on this podcast now. It has nothing to do with upset. We just think it's fucking hilarious. And I literally just read out what you wrote, and it's really funny that you said, like, literally in your story that I was doing something to make people not like Kung Fu, and then you said, "Did I ever say that?" Yes, motherfucker, you did. All right. So we're just laughing at you on this podcast. So please keep it up. I think it's hilarious. Please keep going. It brightens my day.
See, you live in a world where my old man stress would just go through the roof. Jason, could you live in that stressful online world like that?
No.
Well, you got to look at
I
it.
don't
like
have the patience,
man. Like,
I take it too personally.
Yeah, exactly. How I see it is I make a living off of this. So it's not like every job has its own stresses, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
I, at one time, was a manager of McDonald's, and I learned a lot about handling people when you work at fast food. If anybody wants to know the customer service platform, go work at a fast food industry, not as somebody who does sandwiches, work at the counter, and you will learn real quick how to handle people, because everyone who comes to you is all fucked up on the sugary, fatty foods that you're eating them. They're addicted to the shit. When they show up, they're angry. Here's a story, just a quick story to give you how I work with people. At one point, I managed this McDonald's. The entire point of me working there was I was originally working as a martial arts instructor for a long time. The instructor that I was working for, I was starting to pick up a lot of bad habits I did not like. And so those personality traits were coming out. I hated that about myself because I did not like how he treated people. It was very rude. And I had to step away. I was like, look, man, I just can't work for you anymore. So I decided, a friend of mine was a general manager who ran like 8 McDonald's. And I was like, he actually has a law degree. He makes more money working as a general manager for McDonald's than he ever would have doing law. And so what people forget is it's one of the biggest companies in the world. So they make money hand over fist. And so I was like, look, dude, I just want to make some money so I can open up my own school. I was like, can you just put me on a fast track? He goes, I already know your credentials. I already know your resume. He goes, this is honestly a step down for you, but I'll do it for you. So I was like, fuck it. This is an out. I need a job right now. Let's go. Took the job 2 years. It took me a little bit of time, finally worked my way up to management, which was easy. Once I was able to do that, I was working the lobby. I was expediting. So putting food in bags, right? Putting food in bags, and then I'm taking the food up to the front or whatever. And a person who I had just seen go through the drive-thru, I had taken this bag, which was a super complicated order of like 9 fucking sandwiches with all kinds of variables in those sandwiches. And maybe one of them was wrong. Don't know. Gave it to the window takes it out. Guy screeches his wheels up to the front parking lot. I can tell the guy's going to walk in. Guy hits the door open. Bam! Big glass door, right? I was like, what a dick. Like, you can just open it. Like, you know, I don't get why you do that. So he runs up, he grabs the bag of sandwiches, and he throws it at our front desk person, who's a cashier, who did nothing with that order, had nothing to do with the order, right? Like, hits him in the chest. Bam. Now, this guy is literally on a program for McDonald's where he is a convict. So, like, he has to check in with his PO every day.
Right.
And so like that dude was going to murder him. And I was like, yo, dude, please go to the back. It's like, please go to the back. I'll take care of it. I go, what seems to be the problem, sir? And it was yelling, screaming. I always say stupid shit. I can't believe you messed up my order. And he said that there was a sandwich missing. So I pulled out the receipt because those receipts still stapled to the bag. It's sticker to the bag.
Yeah.
And I look at the thing and I start counting the sandwiches on the counter and they all match up. And I go, can you show me which sandwich was missing? And he points, he goes, this one. He's screaming and yelling. And I go, this sandwich right here? And then he like froze and freaked out and then fucking storms out. He doesn't get a refund. He doesn't ask for the food again. And one of the things that he was complaining about was he was late for work. Bitch, why are you going through drive-thru if you're late for work? Take your ass to work. You know,
why are you coming in the store?
When I'm a manager, I have to say something like, I apologize for this inconvenience, sir. What I really want to do is suck my left butt cheek is what I want to say. But I can't. I have to be professional. But like when you're dealing with people like that, you start to learn real fast that it's not you. It is their personal bullshit that they have to vent. And a lot of people use the internet as their therapist. It makes them feel better. I'll be your therapist, but I'm going to be your therapist my way. I'm not going to just let you dump on me. I'm going to dump on you back. We can play this game. At least I want to be entertained. That's all.
I tell my kids this all the time. One of my favorite quotes. You know what? This is a great segue because I don't have this movie in my top 5, but I'm going to go ahead and start with an honorable mention. One of my favorite quotes of a movie is from Roadhouse when Patrick Swayze says, "Be nice,
be nice,
be nice." I tell my kids all the time, just be nice, be polite. Until it's time to not be nice. And how will I know? I'll tell you,
you can't dictate other people's behaviors and actions, but you can dictate your own. And so what happens is a lot of people start to lose control because they feel like they're not in control of a situation. You are never in control of a situation, but you are in control of your own actions. When a fucking roller coaster goes up, right? You aren't in charge of what happens when that roller coaster starts to go. You are in charge, however, how you react on that roller coaster. Like, are you having fun? Are you scared? That is something that you can make a decision because that's such a fine line between being scared and excited that sometimes we confuse the two. But like when someone's yelling in your face, you can't control that they're yelling in your face. You might not be able to stop them. No combination of words, tonality, emphasis, pace and cadence of wording might not ever make them stop screaming at you. But what you can do is control how you react in that situation. That is a choice. And we make that choice every day.
Yeah, I think, and then we'll get to the movie part of this, but I think, and Jason, you can chime in here and you teach this all the time too. That's kind of what boxing to some degree, but martial arts really kind of is supposed to help you get under control, right? I mean, you get a lot of pressure. You've had a lot of guys' bellies on your face, Jason. You've had a lot of people with your arms in awkward positions, right?
That could mean a lot of things.
That's why I said it that way, sir. But I guess my point.
Get on bottom, north, south. See how that works out for you.
That's never fun.
Well, I guess my point on that, though, is you have to learn how in that moment you want to do a bunch of stuff to get somebody off of you and you can get frustrated, but you have to learn to think, right, man?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think, jiu-jitsu, the ego check you get from jiu-jitsu is so thorough and so comprehensive that it spills out into other places in your life and helps you everywhere. But I think, for me, it's almost like the confidence you developed from those situations, like when our egos get bruised, it's very difficult to move away from situations, if we're having like personal confrontation with somebody, but having kind of the confidence and the experience and going and competing, I think competing was really helpful for me. And having hundreds of matches under my belt over the course of my life. And it's just like, between wrestling and jiu-jitsu and all that stuff, like combat sports are really good for your ego. They keep you in check. And I think when you take that and you're out in the real world, it's much easier to step away from something and say, "Hey man, we're good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend. And to walk the other direction and have no problem." If you don't have that sense of security that you develop from all those exchanges and training and all that kind of stuff, it's very difficult to step away. It's like you've got something to prove, and you don't have that when you have a life kind of.
Well, and you have been in where there's real consequences. And sometimes, like my son's 23 and I'm dealing with him right now. He's a good kid, he's a great kid, but he's a lot like I was. And I grew up in the 80s and the 80s are different than now. It's a different world. Yeah. And I've told him, I said, man, once you've been down a certain road, there's consequences from losing your temper. And when you're 15, the consequences aren't near as extreme as they are when they're 23.
Right. That's right.
And so that's why I'm trying to get him to, because he will come over and do the heavy bag with me every now and then. And I try to, rough him up and let him rough me up so he can have some of that confidence.
I don't know how nerdy y'all are, but obviously I'm nerdy as shit, as you can clearly see. But have you ever seen Star Trek, like the original?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So the TV show or the movies?
The show and the movies.
Okay,
I've seen. They bring up this test, right? And they bring it up a lot. I don't remember the name of the test right off the top of my head, but it's basically a lose-lose test. And the only way that I do believe it's Picard was the one. Maybe I'm incorrect, but the only way, and I'm nerdy, but I ain't fucking Star Trek nerdy. But there's a thing in that show that is a lose-lose test for all captains to go through. And I think it's like the Kobayashi Maru or something like that. But basically what happens is when they go into this test, they're flying the ship. And then all of a sudden they get put in a situation that no matter what they do, everyone dies.
Yeah.
And so no one can actually pass this test. And so the point of that test is not to pass the test. It's how you will deal with stress, how you will handle a situation when things are not going your way. And so the reason that the test is a lose-lose is because they want to see what you would do, because normally there almost is never a lose-lose. Normally there is something that you can do to get out of it. And jiu-jitsu is very similar that way. When you're a white belt and you've never done it before and you go against a black belt, I'm sorry to tell you this, if you have no grappling experience whatsoever, you are putting yourself in a lose-lose situation every time for that day at least, before maybe even months, could be even years before you reach that level where you can actually be able to even get close to submitting a highly skilled black belt in jiu-jitsu. And so when you actually start putting yourself in those situations, you're always putting yourself in this lose-lose all the time. And what happens is you become very numb to pressure and stress. It's just like, well, guy cut me off in traffic. Normally you'd be like, fuck you, I'll kill you. But whenever you've had jiu-jitsu or any type of combat training, you can have those moments where you can look back and go through the card catalog of real stress and go, well, at least it's not a 350-pound dude neon bellying me and punching me in the face. You know, like everything just seems a little easier after fighting people.
Well, and also too, Jason and Robert, this is something I've learned. The guy, and I learned this as you get older, but my dad taught me this when I was young. My dad's not a huge guy. My dad served in Vietnam. He's the baddest man that I've ever known. He's also the guy that loves harder than anybody I know. Great guy. Most of my great stories come from my dad. But anyway, you don't know. When you're 20, everybody is a target. When you're insecure, everybody becomes a target. And I have to prove myself to everybody. As you get older, you guys have been on the mat way, 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 way more than I ever been. I've done enough to know the guy getting out of that car. When you're 20, you're looking at how do they look? That guy looks tough.
Yeah.
When you're 30 or 40 and you've been down the road, the guy that gets out of his car that's got the little pot belly that looks at you, real quick, how he looks has nothing to do, very little to do with what damage he can do. You just know you can get your ass kicked.
Luckily, I'm in Florida because everybody who gets out of the car, I just reach for my gun. It is a beautiful thing. Like, I don't play those games. Like,
that's it.
I always find it interesting. We were talking about online stuff earlier where people online will get out their personal garbage and all that good stuff to make themselves feel better for the day. But it's really interesting how many people are really terrified of conflict, like really scared of it. And like the people who get out of their car in the animal kingdom, they call it posturing. And so like they're getting out of the car, like an animal, like a bear will get up and be loud, or a snake will get up and start rattling its tail. Those are signs of fear. Those are not signs of confidence. Signs of confidence are you don't need to get out of your car. I don't need to fight you to prove anything. You're an asshole. Okay, we move on with the day. I can't do anything about it. So like when you're like looking at conflict resolution and you look at people who are being really loud, those people really are scared. They're scared for some reason, whatever that reason might be. And I've even noticed it in MMA a lot where you'll get like a lot of guys who are really full of bravado. Like they're scared in one way or another. They're trying to either convince you or convince themselves that they're going to win this fight. And now there are that third category, by the way, of people who were just doing it to be trolls, right? But people who mean it, people who are like really doing it to better them, to make themselves feel better. Those are never the scary people to me. Those people are just showing the fact that they are scared, you know?
Well,
I think they're also some like the trolls, like the Chael Sonnens, right? The Colbys. Those are the trolls, right? But then I also think, yeah. Well, no, I was gonna say I think I see him as like a separate category. I see him as somebody that his emotional intelligence is so high and it's so strong, and his fight that it's literally psychological warfare, and I think it's effective. I've seen people like wilt and melt under him. You think Chael does that?
Yeah,
I think Chael.
Chael is a lot more eloquent in the way that he puts things together. It's almost like Chael has given himself a script and he already knows what he's going to say
100%
up there. Where I feel like Conor shoots from the hip, like whatever he feels at the moment, he just lets that shit out. You know,
I would say that the end goal for both of those guys is two different things. I think Conor's end goal is to get in your brain and mess you up and break your confidence down. I think Chael's is to put seats or butts in seats and make money.
I could agree with that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know which way.
Those two are awesome. They're like me too. They are the pinnacle of what I enjoy about it now. You know,
I saw a great interview the other day with Mike Tyson back in the day, and I cannot remember the fighter. It was Ricky somebody he was fighting, but the guy's manager was standing up talking trash. The manager that had this big press conference, and Mike is sitting down. You know, and the guy's talking, and Mike looks at him and he goes, "You're going to get your boy killed. Just sit down."
Yeah.
And the guy kept talking. He goes,
"Get him hurt."
He goes, "You're going to get him murdered, man. Just sit down." Shh. And the other fighter was kind of trying to look tough, but in his brain, and Mike kept saying it. Mike was like, finally, go, "Okay, just keep talking. You just got your boy killed. You just got."
The other guy's thinking about his promoter. Shut up, man!
You're
gonna get me killed.
His one-man show was so good.
It was excellent. It's one of the best things I've ever seen on TV.
I loved it. Like self-depraved a little bit, like he does. Like he gets onto himself a lot and about his behaviors, and he doesn't try to justify any of it. But he tells these amazing stories on the show. And one of my favorites is him discovering that his girlfriend was cheating on him. And his girlfriend at the time was like some famous actress model, of course, right? Yeah. And so apparently she was known for being a little bit off. But then again, peas in a pod. Yeah. You know, I'm not saying Tyson's as off now. I think Tyson is one of those stories where he's somebody that we all saw growing up in the limelight. And then somewhere in there, he just took time away. He just disappeared for a little bit of time. He shows back up on that movie, The Hangover. Out of nowhere. And then people just start loving the man. And then he starts talking about like his experiences from a position of someone who's much wiser and older. And even if you look at that video of him recently on that airplane, he was about as calm as you can get Mike Tyson to be. Any other person in that situation would have also fucked that dude up because you're sitting there bumping, man. You're sitting there fucking picking at him and you're not going to leave him alone. Like eventually when he says, "Hey man, stop," you should probably stop. Like that's just me. I wouldn't fuck with Tyson. I'd be like, "Hey man," I don't like. And if he just looked at me like he was having a bad day, I'd be like, "All right, so see you." I'm out.
Clearly that guy was intoxicated too, but like, how much? I don't think there's enough whiskey in Tennessee to make me pick a fight with Mike Tyson. I don't think I could get that drunk.
Even now, Tyson's older. I still would like. I still saw.
He was scary in the fight with Roy Jones Jr. Oh my God, he was scary.
He was scary, but still at the same time, it was like the Mike Tyson that I think we all wanted him to be because he's older. He's not as fast. He's moving differently. Roy Jones is still very much Roy Jones, but also older. And they had this very technical boxing match between one another, almost like this beautiful sparring match, I would call it. I'm not saying they weren't trying to hurt each other because Roy Jones definitely ate some body shots that he was complaining about afterwards. But I would say that it was just really cool to see because the last time I really remember seeing him fight was when he fought Evander and bit the dude's ear off. And then I never watched another Tyson fight after that until this one. And then afterwards, he was so humble and he was so grateful for the experience. And he was like, "Thank you."
I was like, "I'm definitely going to do this again."
Ever.
But
and so like my friends that aren't in the fight stuff, they don't really care, that watched it just because it was Tyson. They were all like, "Oh, they looked horrible." And I'm like, okay, well, his six-pack wasn't as cut as it was back in 1989, but hand speed was there. The technical boxing was there. Like, I loved it. I mean, I loved it. I would buy that every weekend.
I will say this, and I've said it to you, Jason. And people can disagree. I watched it, and Mike Tyson, I think, could have, if he really flipped the switch, could have knocked out Roy Jones Jr. pretty
100%.
much, because there was time that he was
100%.
hitting him, and Roy Jones could have probably done more damage with his speed if he wanted to too. But like you were talking about, there was a mutual respect there I think they both had for each other, and they were both acknowledging, hey, this isn't 20 years ago. Let's go out.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? Now, I would like to see him fight one of the Paul brothers and have no mercy on any of them.
Oh my God.
I would
I don't want to see that. I think that what the problem is I think that a lot of people, and like this is just my opinion, and it has changed over the years, is that the Paul brothers definitely did not start off as combat sports athletes, but they did start off as athletes. They were both athletes, and I do believe at least one of them wrestled, if not both of them wrestled.
I think they both wrestled. I think the younger one actually placed in Ohio State. Don't quote me on that, but
yeah, but I mean they're not physical people, and now. I don't know if he's on steroids or not. It's very hard to tell, but he like kind of beefed up out of nowhere. But like when you look at the Paul brothers, they have a work ethic. Like that work ethic is transferred into other things that they've done. Now, are they assholes? Are they playing the heel? Absolutely playing the heel. That's what's
and they're making millions doing it.
But what I think most fighters are missing is one, they're taking them lightly because of how they started and how they got brought up. They got famous before they became fighters, and a lot of fighters are trying to be famous because of fighting. That is a dumb thing to try to do. If you're a fighter and you're coming up through the ranks, you should be watching what they're doing. Like in terms of your business, the business of.
I was getting ready to say, I think those have been very curated, like handpicked. So, okay, we knocked out Ben Askren, who was a world beater in MMA, but he was a world beater because he had amazing wrestling and grappling ability, right? Like that guy was never a striker. Tyron Woodley, same, maybe a little bit more striking, but the motivation stuff, just a completely different point in his career. I think they've done a really good job of picking the right fights.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also think that what's happening is they're able to get paid so much because they developed a personality before ever getting in the ring.
Absolutely.
They brought an audience to the sport rather than fighters who were trying to just get their audience that's already in the sport. What are you going to do whenever your career is over is the major question for any fighter that should be fighting. Right now, your goal is to be the best in the world. You want to be the best fighter in the world, and that's awesome. That will not last. Eventually, and very quickly, between the time that you're in your teens and you decide that you want to fight all the way up until you're in your 30s, eventually right around that 30 mark, things aren't going to start working the way that they used to. And it's a very brutal sport. Boxing, MMA, wrestling, all that takes a toll on you. So when you're done with that and nobody's lining up at the door anymore to watch you fight people, what are they lining up at the door to pay you for? I hope that you have something,
Right.
Well, that's why I don't hold it. I don't hold being professional. I don't hold it against any professional athlete, whether it's football or rugby, baseball, basketball. When athletes do what they think's best for them, it may frustrate me as a fan if I like a team and I'm old school. But in reality, I don't hold it against a guy going, hey, they're paying me $10 million. You're paying me $7 million. I'm going to get out of this contract. Why? Because I've got a 6-year window. And when I got two buddies, Buddy Curry and Bobby Butler. They were both NFL all pros in the 80s. One was a linebacker. One was a defensive back. And they come on my podcast all the time. And we talk about this. They're retired. They retired when they were 28 years old.
Yeah.
What are you doing from the age of 28 to 30? After that, now you've got the rest of your life. When everybody else is just getting into their stride, you're air quote retired. I don't hold it against them at all for going to take care of their families.
Well, here's an example. And this is something that I always thought was really weird. I hate that this happened. But Ronda Rousey made the decision that she wanted to go to wrestling. That I loved for her because she was clearly going to be making more money. I'm not saying it's very physically demanding thing that she's going to be doing, but at the end of the day, it's still there are a lot more safety measures in place that those people aren't there intentionally trying to hurt you. Those people are there to hurt you for entertainment purposes, not permanently debilitate you. Like an actual fighter across the ring is not going to give a damn about your health and safety. Their job is to hurt you. In wrestling, your job is to entertain. And yes, there are some very dangerous things that you're going to be doing, but at the end of the day, you're still just entertaining people. And so when she moved over to make way more money and lead the sport as a legendary Hall of Famer who had so much impact on women's MMA that she is the face of women's MMA, even still today, that all these fans started shitting on her for doing it. It's like, well,
I think she waited too late. If she would have moved 2 fights earlier, she would have been like an icon, a cultural icon, and to stay like the head kick loss to Holly, and then the Nunes fight. I mean,
You know, the first time I saw
tarnished
her,
it for a lot of people.
the first time I saw her was in the movie Expendables.
Yeah.
When
Really?
oh my God, I didn't know.
If she had left before that Holly fight, I think she'd be one of the biggest cultural icons in the U.S. I really do. Do you think she was actually making more money fighting or moving to the WWE than she was in the UFC?
Absolutely.
Really?
Like UFC.
I don't know anything about those contracts.
Well, the thing is that whenever the UFC pays their fighters, they release that publicly, so you can like literally look at what these fighters were making.
Yeah, but they don't release the pay-per-view points though.
Well, there are definitely some things that you might not necessarily see that are probably a little more privy to contract.
And I think that's like the big stuff. That's the biggest
like
slice.
Sponsorship, for instance, a lot of fighters got fucked over. The lower line fighters didn't, but whenever they did that Reebok deal, a lot of fighters
that was bad.
Look at Anderson Silva. Like Anderson Silva was sponsored
had a Nike sponsorship
and Nike. These
and
massive companies.
That's what kept George St. Pierre from coming back for a long time, because he was Under Armour athlete. Like he was on George St. Pierre was on the cover of all the underwear boxes for Under Armour for 10 years.
It looks like, and this has nothing to do with sponsorships, it looks like just her contract with WWE, and this is out of May 7, 2022, is $1.5 million per year base pay.
See, and I was going to say, I imagine she was making $2 to $3 million a fight back when she left.
But that doesn't include any sponsorships or bonuses or nothing. And again, if I can make $2 million or $3 million and not have somebody trying to put their elbow intentionally into my face and break my jaw, over here I get to kind of have some fun and build my brand. And the life I can do that wrestling thing for 50. Look at Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. They can do it for 15
to keep in mind is think about how athletes have to perform for an actual fight as opposed to performing for like WWE. For an actual fight, you're going to go through an 8-week training camp, most likely. And so when you go through that training camp, it fucking sucks. There's nothing fun about it. Everyone's beating the shit out of you. There's always going to be somebody who's like, you got to go into Shark Tank type training, which is no fun. Your conditioning has
injuries that you're carrying with you.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter because that fight's going to happen. And if you don't fight, you don't get paid. Whereas like you got no guys on WWE all the time. They can kind of work through injuries. Like, okay, well, hey, I broke my finger on my right hand. So like, it's not like in a fight that's going to affect you. And like WWE, you just go, yo, dude, just be careful on that finger. You know?
Hey, I want to get to the movies, but I'll say this. I had Diamond Dallas Page on back at the beginning of the year, and we were talking, and he said that there was one stretch before he got air quote put over by Randy Macho Man Savage, because back in the day, you were not going to become a top echelon wrestler unless you beat Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Savage, Sting, and there was a Macho Man. I mean, there was a couple. Anyway, he said, and it was always up to them. So they would every night they would say, "Hey, what are we doing tonight?" And most nights it were like, this is how it's gonna work. Well, he said that he got put over right before, I guess, SummerSlam when he was turning 40. They were wrestling 30 times in 28 days. So you can't do that as a UFC fighter. You can't fight 30 times in 28 days. It doesn't mean it's not taxing. Doesn't mean it doesn't kick your ass. It just means it's a different kind of physicality that you have to plan for and make adjustments to.
For sure.
Yeah, that is a different thing. All right. Go ahead.
Circling back to I'll make this quick. Circling back to what you were talking about,
you're pissing me
Rob,
off
about the Paul brothers bringing like personality to the table, and then the fights came afterwards, right? I think that's every successful MMA star, UFC star. The personality is what puts the butts in the seats, and because like at that level, everybody is throwing good punches and good kicks, and they've all got good, you're at 99 out of 100 on your kick, on your 99. And so that extra 1%, somebody's 100 out of 100 in their jiu-jitsu. That's not what's selling at that point. It's the crazy things you say, the outfits you wear, the heat you draw with other fighters, the way you leverage somebody else's fan base because you're going out and you're attacking those guys. And I think
Wonder Boy's probably a great example of somebody who right now, like I always did say, and I'm just incorrect, and that's okay. He's us right there, like actually. But I've always like he's a friend, and I gotta say over the years, like he's been nothing but cool with me. And whenever I had the opportunity of going up and training at his facility and being there and hanging out, it's just a really cool atmosphere because it's a family thing for them. But one thing that I noticed is he's one of those rarities where that's just him. Like, it's not an act, it's not a bit.
Right.
Like, he is himself, and you can still do that. You don't have to be like a Colby Covington where you have to create this character. You can just get along with being yourself if yourself is really entertaining or
interesting. Yeah. Well, and so his, you know, I would say his natural personality, there was a hole in the market for that. You know, there people were wanting, you know, kind of a wholesome guy that, like, he filled that niche, that need for a lot of people. But there are a lot of folks, and Chael always talks about this, you know, they're just coming up, they're hard nosed, and it's I'll fight anybody up. And it's like, hey man, you're not interesting enough. You know, there are all kinds of people that have good punches and good kicks and good chokes. You've got to have some personality somewhere in there, whether you're going to be the heel, whether you're going to be the troll, whether you're going to be mysterious, whether you're going to be, I mean, Sean, who's the guy? Sugar,
Sean O'Malley.
Yeah. Thank you. Like that guy. I mean, like, a super interesting personality, you know, dynamic personality. He says goofy things. He looks crazy. Like, I don't, you know, that, like, his piece of culture might not be like close to mine. I don't look like him or sound like, but he's entertaining to me, you know.
For sure.
Same thing with Bryce Mitchell, the Arkansas guy, you know, the Reebok make me some camo shorts guy, you know what I'm talking, like, that guy's got huge following.
Angie Hill is just genuinely herself, and she does a great job, but she's also was able to start working her way to doing a little bit more like back end work with the UFC, not just fighting stuff. And, you know, I really do think that a lot of fighters could learn from those people to go, there's more to this sport than just fighting. I mean, hell, in my job, I had to make my job. My job didn't exist. No one gave me a blueprint. They were like, hey, man, this is how you call out frauds and not get sued. Okay. I was like, I had to figure that out on my own. But anybody you can just make a job now. The beauty of the internet is there's so many different ways to have a good revenue stream if you get the opportunity to have people see you. And the old business tactic, the saying is know, like, and trust. If someone knows you, you're giving them the opportunity to like you. And if they like you, you're giving the opportunity to trust you. And if they trust you, they'll buy something from you. And so people need to kind of get to know you a little bit. And if you put that out there to the world as something that's likable in some way, even if it's likable, like, for instance, McGregor, it's like a likable asshole. Like, he's a dick. Punched an old man in the bar, and he's a dick because he threw a fucking hand cart through a bus and injured a lot of fighters. He's a dick for a lot of reasons. But at the same time, there's just something about him when he's not being a dick that's just kind of likable. He's like this goofy little, like, I say goofy little, a big fucking dude now. But, like, he's just like goofy kind of Irish dude that you're kind of like, you know what? I would drink with you for the beginning of the night. Like, not when you got fucked up. Like, once you got fucked up, I'm going to have to go because you're going to do some crazy shit. But you're like a dude I drink with, like, at the beginning half of the night. And then I go to another bar. You know, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Hey, Jason, are you still there? Because you look frozen. Damn, your internet sucks, Jason.
Yeah, damn you, internet.
If you can still hear me, Jason, click out and click back in because we're getting ready to go into the movies or the Mount Rushmore, and I don't want to lose you on this one. So, all right, I'm clicking you out. There you go. All right, hey, let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and move forward with movies. Let's talk about movies. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, and he comes back on. He can jump in because he's really set on the Mount Rushmore. So, we'll talk about that. Do you have favorite fight movies, or do they frustrate you?
No, I definitely have favorite fight movies. Like,
let's talk them.
Well, I can start with my number one just because it's like the movie I've seen more than any other martial arts movie ever. Okay. And it's Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon.
Dude, right there. Last Dragon, there.
Absolutely. First of all, a couple things that some people might not know. The guy who played Shonuff is the guy who was one of the main characters in the show In the Heat of the Night. And I don't know if you ever watched the show In the Heat of the Night or not, but he was a huge character in that show. He was like the main character next to, I don't remember the other gentleman's name, the guy who used
Archie Bunker guy.
Yeah, the guy who used to play Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
And so, like, what people don't know is they were like best friends, which is very ironic because I think a lot of people who used to watch that show, what is the name of that show with Archie Bunker?
All in the Family.
All the Family. What people don't know is that's a satirical show. Like, a lot of people, when you look back without the context of the time, don't know that that's a satire.
Yeah.
Like, he himself was putting that show out there to show how ridiculous racism really was.
That's why he had Meathead, his son-in-law, to play off of.
Yeah, exactly. And so what people don't understand about that is like he was best friends with that character. Like in real life, they were friends, really close. And so it's really interesting to like know like all these little details about that movie Enter the Dragon. So like that was show enough, right? And then what people forget is Ernie Reyes Jr., who was a legendary martial artist, is the little kid in that movie. So it's like one of the first movies you see. So if you go back, he was the pizza boy on Ninja Turtles movies. He was in The Rundown with The Rock. He was actually a professional Muay Thai fighter for a while. Like in terms of like a legitimate martial artist, Ernie Reyes Jr. is really royalty. He comes from, I do believe it's West Coast Karate team, demo team or something like that, which was run by his father. And also, what about Surf Ninjas? He was in Surf Ninjas. He was the main character. Like the dude's an absolute legend in the martial arts industry. And so seeing him as a little kid is great. The little odes that they do in that movie are so subtle and beautiful. Like the
Bruce Lee.
Yeah, he does like the little Bruce Lee, like, you know, I call it the art of fighting without knowing how to fight. Like those little odes to these characters are incredible. But it's such an 80s piece of cheese that when I first watched it, I watched it as a kid and I loved it for different reasons. Because I loved it because I thought it was funny.
Yep.
When I watch it as an adult now, I watch it for all the little subtleties, like the fact that the trope of understanding that all of the stuff that you're learning in martial arts really isn't as important as trying to just understand yourself.
Oh, yeah.
They do this in Kung Fu Panda where he's trying to find the secret technique. And then when he gets there, he opens up the scroll and it's just a mirror and he's just looking at himself, right? And that's in this movie. He's just looking for
the Last Dragon. When he's getting dunked at the end, he goes, "Who is the master?" And he's having those memory flashbacks.
Yeah.
And finally he goes, he taps his old master taps him on the forehead. Yeah. And then he comes up out of the water and he goes, "I am." He just kind of gets it. And that's, we all are the master of ourselves. But then he goes into his hands were glowing. That was one of my favorite movies. I can't believe that's your favorite, Dave.
And it's like, you know, Barry Gordy was the one who produced it. And so since he put it out there, it's like a ton of his music, which is like, you know, they had like DeBarge in there and they had other stuff, but it's like really kind of a capsule of the 80s. That movie is just a time capsule of the 80s Kung Fu scene back in the day.
And one of my favorite beautiful women on planet Earth at the time was Vanity. And by golly, to me, I thought she was gorgeous. I was like, oh my gosh, she is so pretty. And she was
absolutely gorgeous. And it's funny because Ty Mok, the main character in that show or that movie, Ty Mok, he still goes around and he still like is all about it. Like he still, you know, whenever people want to talk to him about the movie and stuff, it's not old to him. And I know that there are people out there who bash those people who go to comic conventions and stuff like that. But like, let's be honest, like we don't all get the opportunity to get to that level ever. And most people don't even stay at that level of being able to be in a movie so iconic. And so if you do get that opportunity, imagine how it would be if you were over it, but you had fans just discovering the movie for the first time and then you were a dick to them. Like Jason David Frank is another example of a guy who goes to all these different comic conventions, who was a Green Power Ranger and all that stuff, and he owns it. And I think that that's amazing because all these people are fans of him and what he's done, because in one way or another, it was impactful to them.
Well, and two, and I'll bring in Jason back up. I think his internet shut down at his office because he's out of his office right now in Dalton. Also, too, it to me is, life is too short to judge people if they want to go to comic cons or something. I don't care what you do. You got 70-something years on this planet. Do what you want to do as long as you're not hurting me. Hey, Jason, we had started down the movie road. Can you hear us?
Yep, I got you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
You know what his favorite? Yeah. You know what his favorite movie? He started off with number one. So we're going to make this kind of quick and do hit or miss. We'll throw him at Robert and let him give his take on it. You know what his number one was? Last Dragon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was one of my top 5.
Yeah.
The Last Dragon. Give us one and let's see what Robert's taking.
Probably should be. Number 5 for me, The Way of the Dragon. And that was Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the iconic fight scene where if you take that and you put Never Gonna Dance Again on the thing, it kind of becomes real sexual.
That's one of my favorite videos. Yeah.
Always trying to tie back to that pro-American theme. So bringing Chuck in, it was a must on the list.
I will say too, real quick, he brought up one while when you were off, Jason, that is, I forgot to put on my list, but I think it has 2 of the best fight scenes of any movie ever, and that is The Rundown with The Rock. the fight scene in the bar and the fight scene at the end of the guys with the jungle are two of the best fight scenes of any movie. You ever seen The Rundown?
I don't think I've ever seen it. No.
Oh my gosh.
Is it
Robert,
recent?
did you like The Rundown with The Rock?
Absolutely. I think that it was like one of those movies where it was like a transitional movie for The Rock, where he was, he had already done some smaller roles and they finally gave him an opportunity to see what he would do with like a lower budget, and he crushed it.
God, it was good.
But and then like he did that in Walking Tall, like side by side, which to me are like
I saw
the
that
same
one.
probably budget of movie.
Yeah.
But they were so good, and seeing Ernie Reyes Jr. in The Rundown doing like the flips and all the acrobatic kicking was really dope, because a lot of people don't know that dude can actually fight. Like, he's not just a stunt dude, and he's a legend.
Didn't you say that was the kid out of The Last Dragon?
Yeah, little kid in The Last Dragon, but he also did Surf Ninjas, and he's Ernie Reyes Sr.'s son, which is a legendary martial artist who did like West Coast Karate Team. But yeah, like just incredible to see like martial artists like that in a movie where, especially The Last Dragon, where it's so campy and corny, but then you're like, oh my God, like that's a legit guy.
Well, and in The Rundown, Jason, you'll love it, because at the very beginning, and it was kind of a passing of the torch of like fight action hero, as The Rock is walking into the bar, Arnold Schwarzenegger is walking out of the bar, and he says to him, "Enjoy the ride," and he walks past him. So I saw an interview with Arnold. It's kind of handing it off like you're
passing the torch.
Yeah, you're the 80s version. You're anyway, it's a good movie. Do you have another one, Robert?
Yeah, for sure. I have plenty of them, man. I love John Wick. I think when John Wick came out and I saw it in theaters, like Keanu has this ability. I don't know what it is, man. I think the dude just has a crazy work ethic. I saw this video about it actually relates to John Wick, but there's a video of him doing a shot for The Matrix, and he was supposed to do this like triple kick, and it's like a behind the scenes thing where it just was not perfect. And so he did it over and over and over and over and over and over. And he finally was just like, all right, we got to come back to this tomorrow. Came back to it the next day, first take, nailed it, right? He just needed that break away from it. But like, it goes to show that this man has a work ethic. He trained at Terran Tactical, which is like one of the best firearms instructors I have ever seen in my life. Not just that, but Terran can shoot. It is crazy.
How Keanu can shoot.
Yeah, but
is that what you're saying? You said Terran can shoot, but go watch him run those 3-gun courses. It's scary, man.
His reloads, like with the shotgun, are so smooth.
Halle Berry was running through those things too. She was doing a good job.
Man.
Terran Tactical is awesome.
I mean, if you never get a chance to if you really want to see like really good shooting that you can actually apply, you got to check out Terran Tactical stuff. But when it comes down to Keanu's work ethic, he was doing judo and he was doing jiu-jitsu and he was doing all these classes and running guns and like trying to figure it all out all at the same time. That's a lot, especially at his age,
I think him and Tom Cruise have that same mentality of, if I'm going to be in the movie, I'm going to do as much of the action as I can, and I'm going to be as much of the character as I can.
Yeah,
they both have that work ethic.
It's got to help your mindset, if that's what you're trying to embody, to actually be doing it rather than disconnected from it. So.
All right, Jason, give us your next one, dude.
All right, number 4 for me, and there's some numerical significance here. Lethal Weapon 4. Oh, yeah. Lethal Weapon 4 with Jet Li, Danny Glover, and I mean Danny's in all of them, I guess. But that was like we really brought in like traditional martial arts there, having Jet Li come in, and he was, it was just, I loved it. I thought the comedy was one of the best of the 4. Or of the
because they're getting older.
Yeah,
they were getting older, and so then we'll just kind of hit these kind of quick. But one of my favorite scenes in the Lethal Weapon is from the very original one, and in the front yard when they're having the epic fight at the end, and he goes, "What do you say, Jack? You want a shot at the title?" That's one of my favorite quotes ever.
Well, that was one of the first times I ever saw jiu-jitsu, because I saw Lethal Weapon before I saw Enter the Dragon, ironically enough. And so the first time I ever really saw any type of, it's really bad jiu-jitsu, but it was the first time I saw like an arm bar or like a triangle choke or like any of that. And it was kind of funny because it was like a fleeting thing that they mentioned in the movie. And then all of a sudden when they fight at the end, he's actually applying some of the stuff. It's pretty cool. Like that was a cool little fight scene. Gary Busey getting triangle choked.
that whole franchise is just like
I think
awesome.
I think the lack of oxygen may have affected Busey down the road because he became a little nut job. What's your next one, Robbie? You got another one, and then we'll kind of keep going.
Yeah, man, I have plenty. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Raid.
No,
The Raid is incredible. When it comes to like the choreography and the brutality of the fight scenes and stuff like that, The Raid is definitely like on my top 10 every time. It's such a good movie. It's I forget the country that it's out of, but it's a sub and dub movie. So if you get the opportunity and you really want to see a great movie, and funny enough, the sequel to that movie has this incredibly talented stunt performer who, like, when I was coming up through the ranks, was going up through the ranks as well. But she's a multiple-time world champion. Her name's Caitlin Deschelle. And so she's a world champion in kata, which a lot of people joke and laugh at. But the truth is that to go from to be a successful martial artist, there's only a few paths you can go. And stunt acting is one of those paths. It just also happens to be one of the paths that will lead you to more and bigger and better things. Like Taylor Lautner, for instance, did the same thing. As a kid, he was a multiple-time world champion in kata and weapons and forms. Then when he grew up, he went right into doing Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Then he winds up becoming like this big international superstar because he used martial arts as a stepping stone to get to a good acting career. Well, Caitlin Deschelle is in The Raid. So if you watch The Raid 2, she actually has an acting role instead of just a stunt role. She was also like the stunt double for what is that chick in the DC universe?
You're talking about Black Widow?
And so, like, martial arts doesn't just have to be about fighting people. Like, you can actually have a really good career without getting punched in the face.
Well, Bruce Lee did that, didn't he? Wasn't Bruce Lee a stunt guy for a while on a few sets? I think wasn't Bruce Lee
he did
Green Hornet too, but
he was an actual character.
Yeah.
But then again, when it comes down to it, like, it doesn't just all have to be about fighting, which is always interesting in the industry to me. It's because, like, everybody will talk about all these martial arts movies that we love. But then whenever we're not talking about martial arts movies and we're just talking about martial arts, people in the community love to shit on people who don't actually fight, but they'll go and pay them millions of dollars and watch their movie.
Yeah.
So, like, who's really laughing now?
Yeah, and not only that, and Jason, but both of y'all are in the gym business and have taught people, but you let a good movie come out about that and watch the enrollment go up. Karate Kid comes out, that movie's on my list. The Karate Kid comes out, and guess who's at the air quote dojo? I asked Jason, do you call yours a dojo? And Jason, watch this. Jason, do you call yours a dojo?
No, I do not.
It depends. Like, some people call it the studio, some people call it the gym, some people call it the dojo,
But when the 80s, when the Karate Kid came out, man, everybody wanted to go to karate. See, they can shit on stuff all they want to, but there's a lot of people that made good money in the 80s from teaching real karate who people were really interested for a while because the movie came out and everybody's like, I want to wax off and wax on and sand the floor. And
you ever, like, pay attention to that movie? Like, really pay attention to the subtext of that movie? Miyagi was an alcoholic. If you watch the movie, he was an alcoholic who was a janitor. He was a superintendent. And this mom, who's only, like, in the beginning of the movie, just leaves her kid with this alcoholic janitor to, like, do chores for free. Like,
what could go wrong?
I could be like, all right, here's what I'm going to need you to do. Okay, I got this essay due tomorrow. What I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to write that essay for me. Okay, just make it, like, let's say 3,000-4,000 words. All right, make it double spaced. And then what's going to happen is you're going to turn them in. Well, how is that going to help my martial arts? It will help your concentration, Danielson.
Yeah.
And, like, you can call anything that way. You just bullshit. You can just make anything up, and it's martial arts now.
Have you ever seen the YouTube video where it shows that how Danny LaRusso is the evil guy?
Is the bad guy.
Is the bad? That's one of my favorite videos ever. Have you ever seen that one where they flip the script?
I think that's another subtext of the new Karate Kid series is the fact that
they try to flip it.
Like, Johnny is just Johnny, right?
Yeah.
They made that character almost perfect, like, because that's how it would probably be. Like, he's just some dude who, like, got caught and stuck in the 80s, and he had all these emotional issues because of being abused. But then you have, like, Danielson, who, like, is kind of full of himself because of how everybody kind of blew smoke up his ass after that moment. And then he's just kind of a dick too. But the fact of that show is everyone's an asshole. We all have shades of gray. People hate that's the truth. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. And in the age of the internet, it's amazing how many people will pick up one little nugget. Somebody could have done everything. Oh man, this guy cured cancer. It was incredible. He saved a busload of orphan children from running off a bus or off a cliff and then crashing into a fucking monastery and killing nuns. Like, it's amazing what all these things. Oh, but did you see that one thing that he did? Fashion faux pas, am I right? And then all these, like, clips will pop up of these headlines of, like, so-and-so wears this. So-and-so must be a bigot because they wore this. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? But, like, nowadays, people hate that there are shades of gray. People really want people to be black and white. We're not.
We're not.
Right.
There's a great example, and then Jason, I'll come to you for the next movie. There's a great example of a guy that does, and it may have been Einstein. I don't know. I can't remember, and I'm going to screw it up. But it was like he gave 1 times 1 is 1. He went on the whole list. 1 times 2 is 2, right? And he got to like 30. And it was like 1 times 30 is 31 or something. And he did it on purpose. And the class pointed out and go, dude, you got that wrong. And you're an expert. And he goes, right. The example is I can do 29 things right. And you people are going to find the one thing I do wrong. Keep that in mind. That's the way human beings are. And I was like, what a great example.
Good
hey,
lesson.
Jason, what's your next movie, dude?
Hard to Kill, Steven Seagal. Can't beat it. Yeah. Even though it's only
movie.
number 3 for me, it's one of the all-times. I love it.
That's the one with the pool hall scene, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Or was that Above the Law?
That I don't know. That's one of my favorite action scenes of all time. Like,
you know why your brother's
then,
not here? Because he's that's one of my favorite scenes too.
Yeah, like and then what people don't realize is in that particular scene in the pool hall, like this guy comes out with like 2 sticks, which are like pool cues, right? And so he's like ready to fight. That's Dan Inosanto. Like that's also a legendary martial arts.
Oh, I didn't know that. Jason, did you know that?
No, I was unaware. I just, the one that got it for me was like the whole coma storyline. Like, oh, we've been unconscious for months and we woke up, and then the training montage where they get him back to health, and he's got this board wrapped in rope and he's punching it on a mountaintop by himself. Like it's good stuff.
I just wanted to learn how to run without flipping his hands out. That's all I want him to do. He just runs like this. It drives me insane.
He doesn't need to run.
All right, I'm going to throw one out there.
Actually, now he needs to run. Yeah, he needs to run more. Yeah.
I
guess we all do.
We all do. All right, I tell you what. Let's do one more because we got to end the last 10 minutes, 5 minutes of this with doing what I told Jason we would do. Jason, what's your last couple? Give me your last couple movies. I'm going to let you
Bloodsport number 2, Karate Kid number 1. Karate Kid, despite all the things we just talked about, a classic David and Goliath type story. Single mom, poor. Everybody, all the other kids in Beverly Hills, they've got motorcycles and Corvettes and all these things. And Daniel, he pulls it out in the All Valley Championship. Loved it.
See, and I've got Rocky.
Thanks to the tutelage of a drunken janitor.
I've got Rocky and Cinderella Man and Enter the Dragon. Those are my
Cinderella Man's a good one.
Cinderella Man is a good one.
Such a good one, dude. It's one of my favorites.
How about $1 Million Baby? I don't know that we've ever talked about that. Did you not?
No. Movie too.
I've seen it, but I'm not. I
love that one.
It's okay. It's all right. I like watching it with my daughter. Hey, boo you. Hey, let's do this. Let's wrap this thing up because I know you got. Can you give me 5 more minutes, Robert, or do you need to roll?
Absolutely. I got as much time as you need, man.
Well, I just want to do this because I did promise Jason we would do it, and I've got a couple on my list that's going to piss him off. So, I think if you don't have. Just shut your stupid pie hole. Your face hole is making noise right now.
We're gonna go get like matching head tattoos after this podcast.
Yeah, maybe. So
it's gonna say jujitsu, but it's gonna be misspelled. So.
I think we should. If you don't have your top 4 like the Mount Rushmore, then we can give ours and you can give your take on it. But if you have your top 4, we'll all give one and move on.
Yeah, I know my top 4 already. Right. The first one's Miyamoto Musashi. So if anybody doesn't know, Miyamoto Musashi was like a legendary swordsman in Japan, and the story behind him is fucking dope. But to just kind of give you a quick synopsis for anyone who doesn't know, and because I think it's an important thing that people do know about him, was he was in a war and he was on one side and they battled and his side lost. And during that time, you were supposed to either kill yourself out of embarrassment or you were supposed to join the other side. Well, he said, nope. And he ran into the woods and hid. And he was in there for at least a decade. Well, while he was in there, he was just some homeless man living in the woods, right? But all he really had on him was his swords because he just got done with battle. So he's in the woods and he's just practicing all the time. And the other side kept sending in like people to find him because they knew he was in there. And so eventually they actually did send in a squad of like 10 dudes. And he writes about this in the Book of Five Rings, or alludes to it, where when they sent him in, he had nothing to do all day long but figure out the woods and practice sword. So he was really good at understanding his terrain and really good at sword, which he already was okay at. So by the time they sent these dudes in, he would like run to the back of the line and kill one of them and run off into the woods. And then when they turned around to go chase him, he knew the woods so well and it was so dense, they couldn't find him. He'd run to the back of the line and kill another. And he eventually kills all 10 of them by himself. And he writes about it in the book. You can read the quote. It's, if one man can kill 10, 10 can kill 100. And he's talking about the ability to train an army. And so eventually he emerges from the woods out of nowhere, and he becomes what the term is known as Ronin, which is a masterless samurai. And he just starts going from town to town, challenging the best fighters, period, to battle. And all of them had different weapons, usually. Sometimes it was a sword. Sometimes one legendary one was like a sickle with a ball and chain attached to it. And he was like, how do I fight that guy? So he like carved out like a little notch into his sword, and he put like a dagger in there, and he threw it and it stuck in dude's eye, and then he chops his fucking head off. But all of this was like written down. So like there was accounts of all of these things that he had done. And then eventually he goes to fight someone who's like a legend, like a legendary swordsman who was like royalty at the time. And he shows up late all the time just to piss people off. Well, he rows his way to this beach where they're supposed to meet to fight. As he's rowing his way to the beach, he has 2 oars. He carves one of the boat oars into a sword. So then when he gets out of the boat, he has that as his sword because the guy he was supposed to be fighting was known as having a longer sword than other people. I have that same problem. Everybody has different size swords. I'm not judging you. So when the guy runs over to the beach because he's mad, he runs and meets him at the shoreline. So Miyamoto's still standing in the water. And the guy says, I'll kill you for this disrespect or something to the equivalent. And he says, you're already dead. Then he beats him to death with the boat oar. Then he gets back in the boat and he rows away, right? Eventually becoming the man on the mountaintop, which is what everybody alludes to when you hear about this kung fu master in the mountains. They usually are talking about Miyamoto's story because then he goes, retires into the mountains, only takes on like a few students who were live-in students, writes this book, The Book of Five Rings, becomes a legend of the School of Two Swords, all that good stuff. Absolute legend, OG martial artist. He gets his face on the.
I'll be honest with you.
That is way too big brain for me.
Like I was going to say mine are going to be so public educated now. I am a product of public education when it comes to my 4 on the Mount Rushmore. Jason, what's yours?
Mine are all like UFC guys.
Yeah, go for one. Give me your first one, dude.
All right, so I had him at 5, but I'll probably.
There's only 4 on Mount Rushmore.
Hoist Gracie, and that's boring, but yeah, I've got to put him on there because I think everybody that knows about UFC or does it now, it's literally because of that guy.
Okay. So, what's your next one? Let's go. Keep going. You give me another one, right?
Chael Sonnen, man. I think he did UFC what Hulk Hogan did to WWE.
Do you agree with that, Robert? Is that what he did? Did it, Chael?
Who's that?
Chael Sonnen.
I think Chael Sonnen's great. I mean, he wouldn't make my Rushmore, but I do like Chael Sonnen a lot.
Yeah, I know he after Musashi. Okay, yeah, that's my list feels. I feel dumb.
No, it's okay. What's your next one, Robert?
Jigoro Kano.
So he's doing to us on Mount Rushmore what Heath Esslinger did to us about our fight movies.
Well,
he's given the love movies, Jason.
Well, for instance, if you go down the lineage, right, Jigoro Kano was the gentleman who invented judo, but he's also the gentleman who taught the Gracies jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And so, like, if it wasn't for him, you don't get a lot of anybody else. Like,
well, he taught Maeda, right? Who taught the Gracies.
Who then eventually taught, right? So,
all right, I got some big brain in me too. You see that?
Yeah, there you go. But like, if you track almost if you track any jiu-jitsu lineage, when it comes down to like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it will always lead back to him. No matter what school, no matter what organization. And so I think that if he's the guy, I think that it's respectful to put his name there because without him, you wouldn't have anybody else.
I'm with you.
All right.
I like
Jason,
that.
What you got? This is your second of 4, sir.
All right. So I got to say Connor for the same reason as Chael, but slightly different era, different genre, different time. But he really brought MMA, UFC to mainstream culture. Mainstream. He was to professional wrestling what Stone Cold was to
that in the 90s. UFC,
yeah. I mean, I think so. The first mover, Hoist Gracie and Hulk Hogan, kind of same thing. Early, but then when Stone Cold came in, WWE it was in every house. Everybody knew it. It was all because of him. And I feel the same way about.
And
Connor
then everybody after that has kind of been riding. They've been building on.
It was a new level. Everybody's kind of sitting on his shoulders because of that.
All right, Chael, Hoist. All right, Robert, who you got? Because I'm gonna give mine real fast in a minute, and nobody's gonna have comments.
I would say Gene LeBell.
I like that.
I think Gene LeBell, first of all, it was really cool to see that he probably did one of the first televised MMA fights ever. Which you can actually go on YouTube and watch. He actually I forget who something Milo Savage, I do believe, is the guy he fought. and it was like this really cool display. And I think it was one of those things that kind of helped push the art along a little bit more to show like this could be applicable. As a matter of fact, you know, Gene LaBelle has been in the industry for so long that you can see him as an extra in so many different movies. Yeah. Like randomly, you're just like, is that Gene LaBelle? And like, it just is. You know,
and he had a stint in the WWE as well.
Yeah, I mean, the dude is just a legend in his own right, and I think that he deserves a lot more credit for what he's done for the industry. And if you actually go and like look at a lot of people's like pedigrees, a lot of people over the years, especially back in the day, did train with Gene LaBelle because he is so good at what he does. So he used to choke like he used to give out these stickers back in the day that said I got choked out by Gene LaBelle or Mean Gene or something like that. So like people would line up back in the day to like get choked out by Gene LaBelle. Yeah, which I would never do because I'm not a moron. I'm not going to let the cocaine to sleep. It's kind of like that old stupid shit that they do with jiu-jitsu where they have you line up and people whip you with belts. Fuck you.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a grown-ass man. Like, I can whip you back. Like,
right.
My turn.
Right. Well, yeah, you do, but I have to get a belt first, and that's not happening day to day. I just get to beat on you.
All right, Jason, give me your third one, dude.
My last one.
Yeah, okay.
George St. Pierre.
Oh, okay.
I think he was the first true mixed martial artist, completely well-rounded. He embodied martial arts and the spirit of actual martial arts, but executed at the highest levels of the sport. And he was one of the, I mean, he didn't talk and stuff like Chael and those guys, but he was one of the people that helped bring it into mainstream, you know. And
he was the nice guy, dude. He was the respectful guy
he was, because
he's
in a traditional martial arts, you know, respect and honor type sense, you know. So I love George.
All right, your last one, Robert.
Oh, that's Dan Inosanto. So like Dan Inosanto was like, he and Bruce Lee both founded the JKD, the School of Jun Fan back in the day. But also Dan Inosanto was like something that I think a lot of martial artists who were trying to be the martial artist are trying to be. Like my goal before I die is 10 black belts before I die. And Dan Inosanto is like one of those people that already has been walking that walk for decades. So like he already has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think he got it in some astronomical amount of time too, because he's very talented. But also, you know, as a Filipino martial artist, he's a philosopher. He's been training Sistema. And even though I fucking hate Sistema, I give him credit for at least going to learn it. Like he's one of those guys that he just wants to absorb as much knowledge in the martial arts as he can. And I got to witness him receive his like martial arts Hall of Fame, like the one that I respect, which is like Black Belt Magazine's Martial Arts Hall of Fame is the only one like I really respect. But they only give it out like once a year and you have to like do something. It's not like a good old boy Hall of Fame where anybody can just buy it. Like they have to give it to you. And so when I watched his speech is what made me really like him more than anything else, because he got his with another guy and another guy came up and I don't remember his name, but he taught Filipino martial arts as well. And when that guy came up, he gave like a 30-minute speech about how great himself was, right? Me, kissing his own ass. Like, and then he got a standing ovation. Dan Inosanto went up when he had received his award right after that, and he was already crying. When he walked up to receive his award, he spent only 5 minutes on stage, and that 5 minutes was all about all the people that helped him get there. He didn't say a word about himself. And for somebody who's done so much in the industry and affected so many people, and it was just incredible to see that amount of humility. And the dude's old as shit now. I think he's like in the 60s, maybe 70s, and he's still training today. And so like I have nothing but respect for the man, and I appreciate people like that. And he has one of my favorite quotes, which is, in order to understand a culture, you should probably understand the warriors, because if you understand the warriors, you'll find out what they were fighting for. And I respect that.
I like that. Hey, backing up, you said your goal is 10 black belts. Where are you at now? How many do you have?
2. So I have 2 black belts now, and I have my purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been slacking real hard, but I'm hoping that once I get my brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu, I'm 2 stripes away, but once I get my brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu, then I'm going to start working on like Taekwondo after that. And then I'll work on like a weapons art, probably like a Filipino martial art. And then I'll circle back to something that is a little bit more about hands. And so my goal is to just try to be as well-rounded as I can. But going back to his quote about culture, is just kind of understanding the landscape as a whole as best I can. So that way I can do my job better. You know, like understanding those arts is kind of important in order to pick apart what's real and what's bullshit.
What, and I don't know. I'm getting us down a rabbit trail here real quick. Wait, like, what are the two that you have right now? And then I'll stop
So
on this.
one is freestyle karate. And so
Okay.
freestyle karate, the school that I went to, there's like over 2,000 different versions of karate. But the school that I went to, it was very much like a Joe Louis, Bill Wallace,
Gotcha.
Benedetto,
Yep.
Quidez type karate. So it was basically kickboxing.
Nice.
We never did kata. It was all about application. And then the other art is a little bit more like, I guess it's a weapons art. It's called Lissa Jodo, which most people don't know about. But it basically just means I'm good at nunchucks and understanding lanes of attack for weapons.
There you
And
go.
a lot of the same stuff that we learned in that particular art is all almost exactly identical to stuff that you'd learn in Filipino martial arts. It's just based off of a different structure and curriculum.
Gotcha. Cool.
I have one I got from Walmart, to quote, I think, Karate Kid guy, JC Penney, $3.95. All right. So here's I'm just going to give mine real quick. So y'all did the Mount Rushmore. I'm doing my Mount Rushmore. When I started finding it, I put Shamrock and Tito together because that rivalry got me. I'm like, I love people that hate each other and want to beat each other up. George St. Pierre, Randy Couture, and then of course the Iceman Chuck Liddell got me into it because he's the guy that if I'm in a bar, I want him to have my back because that's the way it goes. Now I'm going to end this with this though. Here we go. I think there's people that should be on the Mount Rushmore, though, that are not maybe the real like Dana White for where it's at, the Joe Rogan. I mean, I hate to say there as far as if anybody's making money in that industry, Joe Rogan, the Dana Whites, the Bruce Lees, and who's the other guy? Oh, yeah. Back in the day, people like Tank Abbott and Butterbean, I hate to say those tough guy contests that became really popular, that little gray area where they were just getting the crap beat out of them. And then somebody goes, hey, we can do that same thing, but with really skilled fighters. But there's people I think that have helped the sport of MMA over the last 30 years that really Joe Rogan's not a real true UFC MMA fighter. I mean, he's trained, he's got all the credentials, but he's never been in the octagon that I know of.
He's done as much for spreading the word as I agree. That's a great point.
Again, like we talked about earlier, there are a lot of different avenues that you can take in martial arts. And I think that being an advocate for it is a big deal. And like Bruce Lee himself was, to be honest, I'm not downing him in any way, completely legendary. And I'm sure he could fight, but he never had a professional fight. And so because of that, a lot of people give him more credit than he really deserves in that arena. Like back in the day, Michael Jai White had this thing where it was like, could you beat Bruce Lee? And he literally just said, yes, I could, because he outweighs Bruce Lee by a lot. He's actually competed against people, and he's a big muscular dude, and Bruce Lee was like a 145-pound guy.
Right.
So like, things are on his side for that to be in his favor. But at the end of the day, Bruce Lee was a philosopher. He was an advocate for martial arts. Millions of people around the world started martial arts because of him. But and the comparison might sound odd here, but what about the Ninja Turtles? How many millions of people started martial arts?
Especially kids.
You're right, man. That's a great point. Power Rangers too. Yeah.
They might not even be real, and you can still have an impact in this industry to affect people in a positive way. So I think, again, we put so much emphasis on people who can just fight. Like that's like a part of it.
A tiny piece.
But that doesn't mean that they're going to inspire other people. And that really is a beautiful thing that you can do with this industry. And Rogan and Dana White, like whatever people have their individual thoughts about those people, you can't say that they have not inspired people to want to train martial arts, because they damn sure have.
Absolutely, they have. And they've done it now for going on 20 or 25 years. Hey, Jason, you got anything you want to add, buddy, before we wrap this one up?
No, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Yep.
Yeah, we got to get your. Did your whole internet just shut down at the office? Just everything went down?
I have no clue. I think it was the whole building, so it's not just me. But I think we're good.
All right, well, as long as it's not the Facebook gods that are getting us, we're fine then. Hey, dude, I just want to say, about once or twice a year, that's when I'll probably reach out, because we don't want to take up all your time. But coming on our podcast is a lot of fun for us, and I know you're super busy, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands how much we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Dude, I appreciate y'all, man. I absolutely love talking shop. Like, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Which, by the way, this is like, you guys are very natural to talk to. Like, I always said that I do anyone's show, whoever asked, anytime, whenever, and I've always stuck with that. But not everybody who does a show is actually good at it. So like, it's hard sometimes to have conversations, but it feels very natural with y'all. And it sounds like it's just fun. It's just fun to do. So I appreciate you having me on.
Well, I get to be the fan. You guys get to be the experts. Hey, last thing, if I'm not mistaken, did you go on a friend of mine's podcast, Tom Rowland? Were you on with Tom Rowland?
Maybe.
He does a saltwater. I'll go back and look. I think he reached out to me. I think you might have been on with Tom Rowland. I like to give him a plug because he's got a massive podcast following too. So if anybody's
saltwater,
out there,
like the
saltwater
experience.
But he also does. He just had Diamond Dallas Page
Tom.
on. I hooked him up with Diamond Dallas Page. I thought he had you on. I thought he had Marty Ray. But there's power in sharing other podcasts as they grow theirs, because there's room for everybody. I want everybody to eventually be happy and making money off stuff. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, you can only put out so much content at once, and people can like more than one thing. I watch more than one TV show, so like,
that's right.
Absolutely.
I think it's cool that you boost up your homies like that. That's good.
I'm gonna go look up and follow you now as you get on this kung fu dude. All right. Thrash his ass. All right. See you guys.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right,
see you,
thanks
Rob.
again, Robert. Bye.